Hey everybody, and welcome to The Breakthrough Effect. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta. I've had two successful careers. First, I was an award-winning TV meteorologist and then a financial marketing strategist. I was living the dream, making good money, but inside I was craving for something more, something bigger. So I stopped deferring life and I started creating exactly the life I was searching for. I doubled down on unlearning old mindsets and creating big breakthroughs for me and my family. And now I'm bringing that same transformation to you. Let's understand the rules of this game. Let's get clarity. Let's stop chasing and start becoming. This is the Breakthrough Effect.
Leadership and learning and development in general, it's hard. It's difficult. A lot of times people think, well, I could read a book, I could listen to a podcast, and automatically that makes me a better leader. That's not true. It takes stickiness. It takes perseverance. It takes getting out of your comfort zone and trying. One of my favorite quotes from a guy that was on my show, David Katz, said, learning without doing is treason. So you can't just stop with taking classes or listening to podcasts. You need to get out of your comfort zone and implement some of the stuff you learn.
All right, today on The Breakthrough Effect, I'm talking with my good friend Damon Lembi, a man who went from being drafted by the Atlanta Braves and playing Division I college baseball to transforming the corporate training landscape by upskilling over 1.9 million people in nearly 3 decades as CEO of Learnit. When his baseball dreams ended after 22 years of pursuing professional sports, Damon didn't just pivot, he revolutionized how organizations approach learning and development. Starting as the receptionist of his father's company, he's built Learnit into a global training powerhouse while becoming a best-selling author of The Learn It All Leader and host of his own podcast. Get ready for a breakthrough conversation that will challenge everything you think you know about leadership development, continuous learning, and how the lessons from athletics translate into breakthrough business success. This is going to be a breakthrough conversation with my friend Damon Lembi. Damon, thanks for joining me today.
Jared, it's great to be here, buddy. It's an honor to be on your show, so I'm looking forward to it.
I don't want to brag, but I played college basketball at a Division II level. I know that's not up there with professional sports like you, so just try not to be intimidated by this interview today.
Hey, I played varsity basketball all 4 years, but by my sophomore year in high school, I realized that with my credit card leaps, so to speak, and average jump shot, I knew that I had to go the baseball route. But I love basketball.
I love baseball as well, so much respect to you. Hey, let's get things going. You've been doing leadership training for decades. Let's just get right to it. What is one thing that you have found that goes against all the leadership training and books and podcasts and all the things we've heard so much on leadership in the last 20 years plus, because this has been such a hot topic in the last couple of decades. But what's one thing that you see that is so counterintuitive that nobody's talking about?
Well, leadership and learning and development in general, it's hard. It's difficult. A lot of times people think, well, I could read a book, I could listen to a podcast, and automatically that makes me a better leader. That's not true. It takes stickiness. It takes perseverance. It takes getting out of your comfort zone and trying. One of my favorite quotes from a guy that was on my show, David Katz, said, learning without doing is treason. So you can't just stop with taking classes or listening to podcasts. You need to get out of your comfort zone and implement some of the stuff you learned.
What's that look like to the typical, there's people listening to the show that they're not all leading companies, right? So what's that look like to, I don't want to say the everyday Joe, but the person who's trying to grow and expand their own game, business, life, marriage, you name it. What's that look like in everyday circumstances?
Well, here's why I love that question, because my definition of a leader, and I call it the Learn It All leader, is you don't have to lead a big team or an organization or even be a coach of a basketball team. I mean, you could be a parent. You can be an individual contributor, an entrepreneur, somebody who shows up and takes initiative and wants to lead by example, wants to model behavior of whether it's growth mindset or grit. And they're always working on themselves. I believe leadership is around self-mastery, Jared, and it starts with yourself. You can't lead others. You can't be a great parent, I don't believe, or lead an organization with Learnit if you're not constantly growing and learning yourself.
That's a great point. One thing that I'm finding a better balance of, as I think I just kind of grow in my own journey of personal development, so to speak. I don't know if I'd call it leadership skills, but just for me personally, but they all, to me, they do coincide certainly. You just mentioned the word grit, right? How do you define grit, and how do you define the other end of the spectrum, which is more of like the emotional? I don't want to say spiritual, but I probably will say that. But like, where is this beautiful blend of these two assets, or two sides of the same coin?
I loved Angela Duckworth's book. I think it was called Grit. And if you haven't read it, I mean, I highly recommend it. I don't know exactly what the definition is. For me, I look at grit as going all in, and persevering, and not giving up. And what I mean by that is, look, Learnit's been through 3 economic downturns. You know, the dot-com bust, then you have the 2009 recession, and then there's COVID. It takes grit to get through that. And it's not something you can get through by yourself either. You know, you need to have great people that are supporting you. And this is even if you're going through some kind of health concern, or you know, maybe a divorce or something. I mean, you got to be able to lean into the people that you have around you, and you know, tap into them. And that's all grit to me. Now, the spiritual side of it, I don't know how those two come together. I mean, for me, it's like you got to have faith in something, whether you're religious. You don't have to be religious, but just the faith, maybe even in yourself, that at the end of the day, you're going to figure this out. I mean, we all have challenges, you know, that we have to deal with, but you got to find the strength to believe in yourself and have the grit to move forward. Think life isn't linear. You're going to have your ups and downs. And we, you know, Jared, you and I talked about this when we first met. We have to battle through those tough times.
When you say battle it out, and again, I'm not trying to like re-ask the same question, but like battle it out, like what do you mean by that? Because again, I'm on an entrepreneurial road myself, being a solopreneur. You know, there's people out there who want to start businesses, who have businesses, and are you know, employing hundreds of people probably listening to this. Like, battle it out. What is the key of battling? Is it just gritting your teeth and trying to endure? But like, what are you doing in those moments when you just feel so overwhelmed?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever used the word battling it out before, at least on the podcast. So thanks for bringing that out on me. So I look at, you know, back in the dot-com, I mean, Learnit got over its skis. My fault. We overexpanded. I was more of a know-it-all than a learn-it-all. I went against my dad's judgment. And if it wasn't for the financial support that they gave us, we probably would have never made it. But I stuck with it. You know, I mean, I stuck with it. I remember sitting there thinking, how are we going to get through this? And what I mean by battling it out is trying different things, you know, reaching out to people and saying, look, I don't have all the answers. Can you help me? You know, and just experimenting and trying, but not giving up. You know, I mean, it's cliche to say, you know, you're not giving up, you know, failure isn't failure until you just quit. But it's kind of true. I mean, to me, it's all learning experiments and doing the best you can and showing up every day, Jared, you know, having the character to like, look, even when you don't want to show up, you know, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're just kind of like, I mean, even after 30 years of doing this, I love my job. You know, people will a lot of times ask like, how do you possibly continue to like it so much? But there are days where I don't want to do it. Maybe there's something, my family going on, or maybe we're just having a tough time, going through a tough period. But I think the battling through it is just showing up every day, like it or not.
Yeah. Do you still struggle with fear?
Yeah, of course.
What's that look like for you doing this so long? And I'm not trying to make you sound like an old guy who's been doing this since ancient times, but you know, again, I'm looking at a guy who's been doing this for decades, and I think that there's this notion that like once you get to a certain level, the fear goes away. You don't have to worry about it ever again.
You know what doesn't go away? Fear doesn't go away. Imposter syndrome doesn't go away. Limiting beliefs. And I think a lot of times as you move through your career, sometimes it even gets more so. Now, of course, there are people who I like to call know-it-alls who have it all figured out. They feel like they've got the pinnacle of success. And look, I've interviewed hundreds of great leaders, and I've seen behind the curtains of a lot of organizations. The best leaders that I know are humble, they're curious, and they know that there's always room to grow and get better. Now, with fear, I kind of call it almost like paranoia instead of fear, because let's say we have close to 100 employees that work at Learnit, both contractors and employees, and a lot of these individuals count on Learnit, me as well, for their mortgage, for their health care and everything like that. And so I believe you have to have a little bit of that paranoia or that fear, especially these days around AI, because going through that situation right now. How is Learnit going to be disrupted? Is there something that's going to happen in our organization that's going to wipe us out? I mean, meaning that somebody coming up with this new product and people aren't going to want what we have. Because if you sit back and, of course, there's the whole Blockbuster, Netflix, or Kodak. If you sit back on your heels and you just remain stable, you're gonna fail. I mean, you're gonna stack the odds against yourself. So you gotta, lean in. It's okay to have a little paranoia. You can't let anxiety cripple you or anything like that. But I always want to kind of be, leaning into things and thinking like, okay, how do I make sure I don't just protect Learnit, but how are we going to grow and thrive in this future of work? Which, by the way, for entrepreneurs, parents, everybody, this is a time like we've never seen before. I mean, there's 5 generations in the workforce, right? There's uncertainty in the world, and AI is disrupting things like never before. Not like the internet, never before. The world's going to be different. I hope for the better, but it's going to be different. So you have to have that alertness or paranoia, I think.
I love how you said that, because I literally was just thinking about this last couple of days. In fact, I just did a random, post on Instagram literally this morning as we're recording this, or before we recorded this. And I posed the question, because fear gets such a bad name. And I agree, like we should not be embodying fear. We should not be acting and reacting out of fear. That to your point cripples you. But I posed the question, I was like, hot take here, like what if we actually need it? What if it's actually necessary not to embody and succumb, but like actually use it and transition it into something that's greater? Is it possible that the fear is actually there for our good? Yes or no? And it's been really interesting to hear some of the responses that have come from that.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the difference between, let's say, fear and nervousness, or, being a little afraid? I mean, I because... Well, let me just ask you, what do you think the difference is?
Well, I think that I think like feeling the pressure, like for example, before you're taking a stage, before hopping on an interview like this, there's certainly some pressure feeling. And I've gotten better at understanding there's an art form to feeling that pressure and being able to distinguish that this is a healthy fear, and I'm using air quotes. This is a very healthy fear for me to step into a new realm, a new game, so I can level up, versus maybe friction that is like I'm actually doing something that's out of alignment. But I'm getting better at understanding kind of what that feeling is, and then not letting it stop me, but actually take me to the next level. And then you start training your body to feel that, and then you start looking for those. You know what I'm saying? How would you answer that question?
Well, because it's kind of like what you were just saying. I get a little nervous. You could call it a little fearful, whether I'm stepping on a stage or even getting on this podcast. Every time I played in 1,000 baseball games, if not more, but I always had that nervous energy and a little bit of fear. But I think that that's important, because if you come into it again on your heels, I feel like you're not alert and present and ready to go. I think that maybe it's because both of us are ex-athletes, where I just think that is something that's so important. And then if you manage it correctly, it really works in your favor. If you let it get too far and you get to the point where it disables you, or whatever you call it, and prevents you from not taking this opportunity, I mean that's a whole new thing. But a lot of times, like I've been given speaking opportunities where I'd be like, why would they even want me to do it? They got to be somebody better than this. But before I overthink it, I shouldn't say better than this, but before I overthink it, I just say, yes, let's do it, And so that fear kind of turns into just nervousness, because I'm like, I'm going to go all in and figure this out, right? So, I mean, I do it that's my approach to life.
I love that, because I've been encouraging people in my circles, like just put the date on the calendar. And I've been trying to practice what I preach, so like I'm planning perhaps a live event later this year, more to come on that. And I don't have any of the details figured out, but if I wait till all the details are figured out, that date's come and gone. It's easier just to put it on the, create the space for it, scary, and then rely on your own resourcefulness. And again, there's bigger, I believe there's bigger lessons at play than just doing an event or doing a speaking gig. It's like, wow, this helps me elevate my game. It's such a really an important lesson.
Yeah, and I always kind of go back to I love Sir Richard Branson. Screw it, let's do it. Right? Let's just figure out how to do it. Now, the caveat to that is, just like when I overexpanded as a in my 20s in 2000, I think you got to look at a situation where fast forwarding a year, I call it purposeful awfulizing. What is the absolute worst scenario that could happen, right? If it's something that's going to bankrupt you or get you divorced or just a terrible decision, and then maybe go back to the table, recalibrate, and figure it out. But if it's a situation like, hey, I'm going to put on a conference, even if I lose money on it, it's not a big deal. I'm going to get some value out of it, and I'm going to learn from it. Then say, screw it, let's do it. Let's just go for it. But you don't always want to look at things through rosy glasses, right? You want to think about how could this turn out, and then move through it.
I love your story as being a professional athlete now into business. Obviously, I'm biased because I used to be an athlete myself, and I understand the things that you learn and the mental toughness you have to deal with, and how a season or even a game really represents a year of life or a season of life where you have adversity. Talk about just briefly a little bit of your resume in professional sports and like how, air quotes, you failing in professional sports and having to like readjust, regroup has really helped you get to this point to teach other leaders to be at their highest level.
So for me, my entire life was to be a Major League Baseball player. I mean, that's, from a little kid on. I mean, at first I wanted to be Batman, then I wanted to be a professional baseball player. And I think some of that came from I idolized my dad, and he played college baseball and whatever. But I really enjoyed it, and I did really well. But here I was at 22 years old, my baseball career came to an end. And I didn't know if the skills that I had were transferable. I didn't know if everything I went all in, put all my eggs in one basket, if it would help me for the rest of my life. I was lucky and very fortunate that I came from a family who had multiple different businesses I could move into. But I chose this little Learnit and started out as a receptionist there because I wanted to prove, first and foremost, that I wasn't just getting a silver spoon and being put in this big position. And also, again, I was intimidated and had some limiting beliefs. But what I learned was what I call the athletic education. What you learn so much in sports. And so first I had this identity crisis, like, who am I? I don't know what I am. And it doesn't have to be just sports. It could be, going from being a meteorologist into an entrepreneur, right? It's like, but you could be an accountant and get let go of your position, and maybe you want to be in sales, right? So don't just identify as an accountant, or a meteorologist. Be like, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to do this, right? And what I've learned is, what I learned in sports, collaboration, discipline, receiving feedback, learning agility, all of these things, adapting and changing, all of these things that I learned in my life. And you could learn it too from college basketball or high school soccer or cross country. Those all apply and can be used. And I for all you parents out there, please have your kids play sports. Please. They don't need to be professional athletes or college athletes, but have them out there and playing sports, and play multiple sports. Don't just focus in on one sport. Get out there and collaborate and learn and learn some discipline. And it's kind of a long answer now, but my leadership has been developed and modeled after what I've learned from other great coaches or athletes.
Yeah, I love that. When I was done playing college basketball, I got my first TV job in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and people are like, how was the transition? I'm like, it was really easy, because I go, this is way easier than playing college basketball, and I'm getting paid for it. I'm saying? Yeah, you brought up a really good point about identity. Like, how important is that for leaders to really sit back? And I know that this is hard for people because, especially business owners, like, they're just strategy and like figuring it out, and P&Ls and revenue. And you sit back and you ask people, like, who the heck are you? Do you walk people through that exercise and really dive into that identity piece? And if so, like, how big of a role does that play?
Well, I think identity is a very big thing. I don't necessarily coach somebody through on how to figure out their identity. What I can just tell you is my identity isn't the CEO of Learnit or an ex-baseball player. I just want to have, like, whatever my core values are. Let's say that there's somebody that I could be trusted and a good parent and somebody who could be resilient enough to figure things out. I mean, to me, that's my identity. And however I move through my career in different stages of my life, I mean, that's what it is, right? I don't want to be anchored into one thing. As a business owner, all those things you said are true. You got to manage your P&L. You got to make sure you don't run out of money to pay your cash flow and keep track of AR. You got to do all kinds of things, But that's why I also think it's really important. Sure, you could take classes at Learnit, but you could also go out, find mentors, find executive coaches. I think you need somebody that you can turn to because it can be very lonely as a entrepreneur or business leader. So you need somebody that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of, and give them the opportunity to give you feedback, and learn and grow.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm curious, like do you set goals? Do you set vision? If so, like, are you out quarterly, a year, 5 years? How do you make sure that you are always being propelled by a vision of where you want your company to grow into and who you want to become as an individual?
I mean, it's a great question. And I think a lot of times what happens as a business leader of a small business, sometimes you just get so absorbed in the day-to-day and just fighting fires all the time that it's easy to lose track of what that vision for your organization should be. And sometimes you even have it in your head, but you're not, it's not carrying out throughout the organization. And, I've struggled with that back and forth. I just think like people should just show up and get the job done. But we're kind of going through this pivot right now at Learnit. Like, who do we want to be in this next 20 years? Do we want to go into the AI readiness space or whatever it is we need to do to help our customers? And so we're going through a big strategic plan of that right now, because I think at the end of the day, it's very important to have your vision and your goals, and that your different teams and your employees, that they can tie back what they're doing on a regular basis to it. Personally, I've always been a big fan of Michael Hyatt's Big Three, his freedom, compass, and full focus. So I have my quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily Big Three. So every day I come in and I'm like, these are the three most important things I need to get done that are tied back to my monthly, quarterly goals. And that just kind of helps keep me organized. And I write those down, and then I also write down a couple things that I'm grateful for, and I just take 10 minutes of that. And when I'm consistent with that, which I am right now, I'm much more organized, and I feel like I'm much more productive than coming in, Jared, and just like, okay, let's just hit the ocean of emails hit me. And then you leave the day thinking, well, I checked a lot of things off the list, but I didn't get anything done important. So have your Big Three. There's a book out there called Eat the Frog. Get those things done first. The tough things get done first. That could be going to the gym. That could be having a difficult conversation. That could be whatever it is, so that's how I go about my time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. I never try to go into a day without knowing pretty much what needs to happen. The gym's the same way. And you see these guys at the gym. I've been going to gyms for a long time, but you can kind of see the guys who don't come in there with a plan. And what do they look like? They're kind of meandering around here. I'm not poking fun, with all due respect, but a lot of us do that with our days, me included sometimes. And if I don't have a plan, man, I'm just kind of floating around and not being intentional with our time. I think that's great.
And keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't get too complex with your plan. Like I said, I just like, these are the three things I'm going to get done today, and they're important because of so and so. Once you get those three things done, then have some time to yourself, or just knock out whatever little things you want to get done. And delegate what you can if there's some way to delegate it. Even if you're an entrepreneur and you've got a limited budget, you could still find an outsourced somebody in the Philippines or somewhere else, pay $1,000 a month. Think about how valuable is your time. I mean, should you be doing tasks that you could pay somebody else $5 an hour to do? No, you shouldn't, right? So you want to get disciplined with your time and strategic as well.
Do you find that a lot with leaders? Like, they're just, I don't want to say control freaks, but they just have a hard time letting go. And how important is that for them getting to their next level?
It's everything almost. If you want to scale and grow, you got to learn how to to empower others and delegate. I mean, I've gotten so much better at that in the last, let's say, 10 years. I'm not saying I was ever a micromanager. I've always brought people in and give them the autonomy and allow them to fail and try things. But I've only in the last 5 years have gotten almost completely out of the day-to-day operations. Because what happens when you don't, Jared, you become the bottleneck. Everybody's waiting around for you to give answers. A lot of times you're coming up with answers that people who are much more talented at you in certain situations could answer it better. So you have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to set people up for success, give them clarity and vision on goals of what they need to do. Step back and let people do their thing. The other point I want to bring up is let's say my wife wants me to paint the gate out of my house, right? Why don't you just take off 4 hours of work and go paint the gate? Well, I could pay somebody $20 an hour to do that, right? Or in San Francisco, $50 an hour to do that. And I could refocus my time. And if we close one deal, that's 10x worth that, right? So you just gotta do that kind of calculation. And I think that's so important because your time is probably worth more than some of these lower hanging tasks that we sometimes find ourselves moving towards.
Yeah. Very well stated. And I couldn't agree more. For people that are trying to like level up their leadership game or even just like personal growth game, perhaps they feel like they're kind of at a ceiling, so to speak. Like what's maybe one thing that they could take from your Learn It All practice that is just an easy nugget or a takeaway that they could maybe even implement, right after they're done listening to this?
Well, great question. I mean, first and foremost, if you're at your ceiling, you're wrong. So, I mean, my little quote is great leaders aren't born or made, they're always in the making. I mean, it's a journey, not a destination. And I love it when people tell me that they don't have enough time they're too busy to learn or anything. Then what I like to ask them a couple of minutes later is, see any good Netflix shows? And then they could rattle off 10 shows that they're binge watching, okay? So this goes back to your question. 20 minutes a day. Get up first thing in the morning and just read something. Listen to a podcast. Just get in some intentional learning. And then as you're doing that, as you're listening to Jared's podcast or you're reading a book, think about how is what I'm reading, I can apply it to my life professionally or personally. So that's my little nugget. You don't have to go crazy and spend hours and hours and hours doing it. Just find little pieces of time, learn, and figure out how you're going to apply it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. I think I think we overestimate how long it takes to really make some significant changes in our lives, whether it be personal growth or business development or leadership development, like what you're talking about. We got to start to land this plane. I do want to ask you about this. You talked about imposter syndrome a little bit. You have like kind of a 3-step approach to that. We don't have a ton of time to talk about this, but I know like a lot of people deal with that. People that are attracted to my message, they want to take their life to the next level. I try to give them the tools and inspiration to do that. And they find themselves like constantly finding a limiting belief about themselves. It's not really me. Who am I? You've heard it all yourself. Like just quickly, what can you say to those people?
Very quickly, I actually turned it into a 4-step process. And
nice. I read that wrong. Sorry about that.
No, you didn't read it wrong. I evolved it, right? So
there you go.
I added the first step. The first step is labeling your fear, right? And so if you're taking on a new manager role and, like what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, you could survive it. So once you realize that you could label your fear or what's bothering you, then move on to step number 2, which is work hard. There's no hacks for hard work. You just got to get in. You got to do the hard work. Step number 3 is deliberate practice, deliberate focus. It's one thing to work hard. It's another thing to really focus in on what you need to get better at and do it, right? So if it's a transition or a hook in your speech, focus that, role play that until you knock it out of the park, at least, in your practice. Step 4, the final step, is learn and let go. Know that you've put in all the practice and effort and, if it's a couple hours before you're stepping on the stage, let's say, stop worrying about your technique. Stop worrying about what's going to happen. Just know, hey, I put in the hard work. Go out there, whether you're stepping on stage or into a batter's box, whatever, give it your best. You're either going to knock it out of the park. You might fall flat on your face. Everything is a learning opportunity, but also just give yourself a pat on the back because so many people are afraid to even take that chance that you did. So those are my 4 steps. Label your fear, work hard, deliberate practice, learn and let go.
I hear a lot of action in there too. I think a lot of people, if they just took action, a lot of that imposter syndrome would go away. Because as you take action, it's like you actually start becoming it, and you start caring a lot less what people think, and that you kind of start rising above that fear aspect.
The one thing I want to say about that, why that is so important, is when you start taking action, you don't even have time to worry anymore because you're so busy doing it, right? I mean, otherwise you're just sitting around thinking about the bad stuff. But if you start working hard, if you do all that, I mean, you could just say that right there. Just take action, and it'll get you going in the right direction.
I love it. One more quick question here before we let you go. And this is a kind of a recurring question that I end on these shows, as I'm finding as I do more of these. But if you could install like one program, like a learn it all mindset into people's minds, like I just wish you could get this, where I could literally go into your mind and install this program, delete this other one that's holding you back, what would it be?
Get over the victim mind, the victim blame game. Look in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently in this situation? I'm so fed up and tired of people with the victim mentality. I'm not, there's just like, look in the mirror, whether you lose a deal, whether you lose a friendship, instead of blaming people all the time, think about what could you have done differently? That's what I would install in everybody's mind, and we'd be much better off, all of us.
Beautifully said. I agree, because that is a choice, and the most empowering place that people can operate from is from a power to choose. And what you just said right there is a very intentional choice that you have to make, and that's what makes that so powerful.
And the last thing I'll say about that is, if you want to be a great leader, you want to be a great parent, you want to be a great entrepreneur, you have to have self-awareness. And if you have that self-awareness, then you can reflect and do what we just talked about.
I love it. Damon Lembi, before I let you go, let us know where people can find more about you, your book, your business, and everything you're up to.
So please connect with me on LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. My podcast is the Learn It All podcast. Please check it out. Jared's coming on very soon. And my book's on Amazon or any other channel. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm giving away 45 days worth of free classes. So, I'll even give Jared a link he can put in the show notes. But come take a class on emotional intelligence, or how to have difficult conversation, or how to use Copilot. Just let me know.
Damon, well done, brother.
Thanks, man. I had a great time. Great questions.
Did you ever play the Twins?
I didn't play against the Twins, but I played in the Metrodome.
No way!
If this conversation sparks something in you, don't let it fade. Please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Don't forget to connect with me online as well. Follow me at Jared Sebesta on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or dive deeper at my website, jaredsebesta.com, where all my free trainings and resources are waiting for you. And remember, stop chasing the life you want and start becoming. This is the Breakthrough Effect. We'll see you next time.